I am Supreme, and today's Astro-oracle investigation will be on Lee Thompson Young. Lee Thompson Young was an American actor best known for his breakout role as the titular character in the Disney Channel series, The Famous Jet Jackson. He successfully transitioned into adult roles, most notably portrayed Detective Barry Frost on the TNT crime drama Rizzoli and Isles. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. Forgive me for mispronunciations. Now, his career highlights was The Famous Jet Jackson from 1998 to 2001. Young starred as Jet Jackson, a teen actor who played a secret agent on a fictional TV show. Friday Night Lights 2004. He played Chris Comer, a talented running back in the critically acclaimed football film. Smallville 2006 to 2010. He brought the DC Comics character Victor Stone Cyborg to life in a recurring guest role. Rizzoli and Isles 2010 to 2013. His final major roles was as the tech-savvy and kind-hearted partner of Jane Rizzoli. Now, his personal life and education. Young was a dedicated student who graduated magna cum laude from the University of Southern California with a degree in cinematic arts. He was also a member of the Kappa Alpha Phi Psi. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. Forgive me also if I mispronounce that. Fraternity. Outside of acting, he was an avid photographer and trained in various martial arts, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Legacy and mental health advocacy. Tragically, Young died by suicide on August 19th, 2013, at the age of 29. Following his death, his family revealed he had been living with bipolar disorder and depression. So, in his honor, his mother and sister founded the Lee Thompson Young Foundation, which focuses on reducing stigma, educating the public to change the narrative around mental illness, mental health literacy, providing training and resources for schools and communities, mindfulness scholarships, offering support to first-time college students. So, before I start this reading, first, I want to give a shout out to my subscriber and viewer who suggested this reading, Womb Prism. I appreciate you. I appreciate my subscribers and viewers for suggesting content. And also, whenever I do a reading on somebody who commits suicide or somebody who has died of drug and alcohol addiction, y'all know I like to do a moment of silence, especially for the drug and alcohol addicted people who lost their battle to drugs and alcohol. Because I myself am a recovering drug and alcohol addicted human. I've been clean now for about 18 years. Okay, so I also like to have a moment of silence for people who lost their battle of drug and alcohol addiction, because that was supposed to be me too. You know, we stand up, we fight, but not everybody wins. I made a decision to make sure before I go any further in any career that I pursue, that I'm going to conquer my demons, because I made a promise to myself, because I know nobody's coming back to save me. A lot of people don't understand that though. You know, a lot of people are still in a religious, you know, circle where they hold on to that belief that, you know, Christ is coming, God is going to make a way. You know, not everybody has gotten out of that religious box. And I feel like that's an aspect of recovery too, that people should embark on, recovering from Christ. Like, really, and I'm not even trying to be funny, but I feel like that's something very serious people need to recover from, religion, because religion has fucked a lot of us up. But some people, it hasn't fucked all of us up. Some people, that's keeping them sane. The fact that they actually believe that the Messiah is coming to save, and To those people, I don't want you, if you're one of those people, don't take this the wrong way. This may not be for you. Okay. But I don't want to mess up your belief, because whatever is keeping you out of trouble, whatever is keeping you sane, whatever is keeping you a civilized human being, whatever is stopping you from hurting, killing, stealing, robbing, raping, I commend you. If you believe in Christ, continue to, if that's what you believe is keeping you out of trouble, I do not want to touch that belief. Okay? I respect it, because I've learned to never touch something that's keeping people out of trouble. That's all they know. And you got to respect that. So to the rest of us who have understood, we've grown out of that box. We've come to our own understanding that if we don't get up off our knees and do something, it will not get done. Okay? So this is why I do what I do. I had to get off my knees and do something. Okay? Because I knew if I don't get up, it won't be done. So I am indifferent to a lot of what religion people, they feel like, if God don't do it, it won't get done. I've come to the understanding that I am God in the flesh. I am God having a human experience. If I don't do something, it will not get done. And it is my prayer that all people understand that within themselves, because that's the tangible, physical evidence of God, is when I look in the mirror at myself. That's who God is in my life. You are God in your life. Okay? It is my prayer that you wake up and understand that. Okay? So that way you can become proactive in your development, in your recovery from whatever it is you need to recover from. And we need to recover from the fact that somebody's going to come and do it for us. I feel like that's one of the most high recoveries, including recovering from things that are affecting your health, such as drugs and alcoholism. Okay? So let's have a moment of silence for those people who are losing and have lost their battle. Okay? I want all of us to win. Okay? But you have to want to win for yourself in order for that to happen. Okay? My desire for you to win is not going to make you win. Just like they say, whatever I eat don't make you shit. Okay? So whatever I do wrong is not going to turn on your stomach. Okay? So this is why we got to be proactive within ourselves. So let's have a moment of silence for people who have lost their battle and have taken their own life as a result of it. Thank you. Because this is not a game. It's not easy being human. It's really not. It's really not easy being human. We didn't ask to be here. A lot of us were born into this life under situations and circumstances that, we feel like, well, damn, my parents should have just left their legs closed and or wore protection because they don't want me. You got people that were born into this life with parents that did not want them. And, we had to go through life feeling unloved by the people that created us. Nobody should have to feel like that. And I'm not saying that that was Lee's situation, but that is a situation that a lot of us suffer from. I didn't suffer from that situation, but there are people that suffer from that. Just because I didn't don't mean that I'm insensitive to people who do. Okay? There's a lot of, abuse. Children are defenseless. They go through abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, adoption. We got a lot of orphans in the world. People just don't know, drug addictions. Parents were on drugs giving birth to children with birth defects because of the drugs. And, and you have to live that way because we all have a heart, no matter how we were made. We all have a heart. We all have a mind. We all have emotions. All the elements, earth, wind, water, fire, we all have the elements within us. We have emotions. We have a spirit. We have to learn how to live with whatever hand life dealt us. We all have to learn how to live with that. And that's not easy. It's not. Because there's not enough people who actually embarked on that journey and is conquering enough to be a sane counselor for us. Because a lot of times you don't want to take your issues. Me personally, I had to counsel myself out of my situations. I had to wake up, and tap in because I needed my spirit team to help me. I did not want to take my problems to a counselor because those are worldly educated counselors. They are not educated through experience. Experience is the best teacher. You can't sit somebody down and teach them how to counsel other people. Being a counselor, a healer, comes through experience. I'm a healer. I am a healer by experience. Experience is my document, degree, and diploma. Okay, it is my degree of education. Okay, my experiences. I can be a drug rehab counselor because I have experience in what drug addicts go through. Not because I went to school or because they chose me or elected me through some type of educational class. No, I have experience. So this is why we need people who are actually growing up in life. People who are actually doing the work. Okay? My Astro-oracle. This is going to tell the whole story. I'm going to pull 5 cards on Lee Thompson Young. I'm going to give Lee Thompson a voice, and he's going to tell his story. Why? Because that's what I asked for. And I'm moving out the way and giving Lee Thompson a voice and a vessel to speak through me. I've already had time to sit with his energy, his photos and his information and his charts. And I do see his suicide, and I'm going to point it out to you in his charts. But I'm also going to give him a voice from the ethers. I am a high-ranking Astro-oracle psychic. Okay, I don't sit down every day and play with you because I don't play with myself. This is a real thing. And this is also bringing awareness to humanity that oracles are a real experience. Not every person that picks up a deck of cards is an oracle. The oracle is in the person. When you have reached a degree of spiritual development and awareness, your signal is what qualifies you to be an oracle. You are a signal for the ethers. Whether you use your gift through cards or teaching, preaching, prophesying, those are all oracles. Those are all outlets for oracles. When I put my hands on a deck of cards, whatever comes out is going to prove my oracle signal to the ethers. It speaks for itself. And that's what I'm going to do right before your eyes. So Lee Thompson Young, tell us what happened And 5 cards. What happened? What was going on with you that led you to take your own life? Tell me who was in your energy. Who influenced you? Who influenced these low vibrational emotions and frequencies that led you to take your life? And 5 cards. Tell us your story. These do not come out in reverse because I have a card designed for both the positive and the negative aspects of the information that I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Now, this was the beginning. The 5th house. The 5th house is the house of the entertainment industry. Entertainment. This is Leo's house. Entertainment, pleasures, celebrities, romance, okay, creativity, theater, arts. This is that house. And this is the house. This is the energy of Lee Thompson Young. He had strong 5th house energy. Everybody in the entertainment has this 5th house energy. So this was the beginning. Success, the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of fame. Not everybody in the entertainment energy is actually famous, but Lee Thompson Young was actually famous. The 10th house is the house of fame. Okay? We all have an artist in us. We all have a singer in us, a dancer in us. Okay? We all have a 5th house energy in us. Okay? We all have entertainment in us. That doesn't mean we're famous. Lee Thompson was actually famous. The 10th house is the house of fame, success, prestige. And it just so happens that the success card came out in the house of success. Why? Because I just allowed Lee Thompson Young to have his way through my vessel. So he's talking to us. This was about his career. The 10th house is the house of career and the successes thereof played a major role. There was a 3rd house challenge in Lee Thompson Young's energy. The 3rd house is the house of communication. It is the house of the mind. And we do know that Lee Thompson Young was confirmed to be bipolar. That's a mental health issue. He suffered mental health issues. That's this card right here. 3rd house. That's Gemini's house. The house of the mind. The house of interactions and travels and what's going on. So we're going to look into Lee Thompson Young's 3rd house to see the source of his mental health. Whatever sign shows up there will give us a clue into the source of his mental health challenges. There was an enemy in his career. This successful career that Lee Thompson had, there was an enemy. Of course. We all have enemies when we're successful, especially when we're famous. We all have enemies. Success in the 5th house. Of course, he was famous. This was the beginning. He was famous. He was an artist. He was an actor. He was an entertainer. Success, beginning. Okay? He was also successfully famous at the top of his career. So what happens to a person at the top of their career that leads them to want to take their own life? Let's pull the charts and talk about it. Lee Thompson Young was born February 1st, 1984. the sun and the moon was in Aquarius. This is going to be a good reading because guess what? Today is February 17th. And the sun and the moon is in Aquarius right now. We are currently experiencing a solar eclipse in Aquarius. And it is so ironic that I'm doing this reading on an individual who was also born during a time when the sun and the moon was in Aquarius. This is going to be a powerful reading. I am highly tuned in to Lee Thompson Young. So when the sun and the moon is in Aquarius, Aries is always rising when the sun and the moon is in the same sign. Whatever sign it is, Aries is always the new moon baby. Just like a full moon baby is always Libra rising. When the sun and the moon are in the exact opposite signs, the sun is directly facing the moon, which makes it full. Where opposites bring balance, which is why Libra is always the sign that comes first, the sign that's always rising during a full moon. The new moon is when the moon is hidden. You cannot see the moon that night because it's a new moon, which is why Aries is always rising during a new moon chart in all new moon babies. So, the 11th house is where Lee Thompson Young is because he's an Aquarius. His sun and his moon was there. This is the house of groups, gangs, organizations, sororities, fraternities. And he was a part of a group. I'm getting ready to show you. He was a part of the Kappa Alpha Phi Psi. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. He was a part of that fraternity. That is an 11th house experience. Okay? The 11th house is the house of sororities and fraternities. So here is where he is. Okay? Now, let's pull his death chart. In his birth chart, I cannot see whether he committed suicide. But what I can see is what began that journey, which is in the 8th house of death, because we know he's dead for sure. So I always look in the 8th house, which started that path. Scorpio is at home, because this is Scorpio's house. So wherever Scorpio shows up at in the death chart will determine the end game of what began his death. And then what shows up in the house of death will determine what actually happened. So Lee Thompson Young was found dead August 19th, 2013. On that day, the sun was in Leo, which is the 5th house, the house of entertainment, and the moon was in Capricorn, which is the 10th house of career and fame. When you put a Capricorn moon in Leo's house, which is the 5th house, Virgo is rising. Virgo is the energy of work, service, health, daily routine, the workforce, his daily job. Look in the actual 6th house. You'll see Lee Thompson Young. There was a member in this house of his career, which was the enemy. Look in the house of death. You will see Aries. Aries represents a self-inflicted death. Aries rules the self. And in Lee Thompson Young's birth chart, you see Aries comes first, the self. When the self lands in the house of death. This is a self-inflicted death. You cannot make this up. You cannot make this up. Now, what was most likely the cause of the death? Well, what started that path? Scorpio. Look where Scorpio is the day he died, in the third house, the house of the mind, the house where this third house challenge came out. Scorpio in the third house is a powerful challenge when it deals with mental health. This is the type of mental health challenge that will cause you to take your own life. Mental health. Virgo is the energy of health. That is the source of Lee Thompson Young's death. Mental health. Pluto rules Scorpio. Pluto that day was in Capricorn. Capricorn is right here in the house of entertainment, the fifth house, which is where he was successful. Capricorn is the energy of success. Capricorn rules the 10th house, where you will see Lee Thompson's Gemini energy. Gemini rules the third house. You cannot make this up. You see, Gemini rules the third house. The third house is Gemini's house, where Lee Thompson Young's mental health issue that promoted his suicide. This was about his success. This was about his career. And the enemy. There was an enemy. Where did Gemini come from? Gemini came from Lee Thompson's third house. Gemini is at home in the third house. Mercury rules Gemini. Lee Thompson's Mercury was in Capricorn, which was his career. Okay? And then you have Leo, which is where Lee Thompson's Mercury was the day he died, in the entertainment. Now look where Leo is at. Leo is in the 12th house of the hidden. This is the house of the enemy, the hidden enemy. And we know he had a hidden enemy because Mercury rules Gemini and Mercury was in Leo right here. There was an enemy that played a role in Lee Thompson's energy that provoked him to take his life. Y'all, I tied the knot right here and it's hurting my head. That's why I keep going like this, because I want to take this shit the fuck out. But I like the way I put my ensemble together. By the way, I make everything that I wear by hand. I sew it together. So if there are any content creators or anybody who would like anything made, just reach out to me in my email, because I am also a fashion designer as well. Yeah, Lee Thompson Young had an enemy. He had an enemy. Now, the sun rules Leo, and the sun was in Leo that day. So this enemy was directly a fifth house enemy, because Leo rules the fifth house. And in the fifth house, you see Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. Where was Saturn at? Saturn was in Scorpio both the day Lee Thompson was born and the day that he committed suicide. Scorpio is right here in his third house. The third house is the house of interactions, travels, neighbors. The third house is also the house of siblings. This was an enemy that Lee Thompson regularly communicated with. This was a person that had access to Lee Thompson's mind, his career-oriented mind. This is like a form of witchcraft. This was a person that got into his mind. There are witches all over. Lee Thompson was exposed to an entertainment industry warlock or witch who got into his mind and was able to take his mind to a place of death that made him feel no longer worthy to live, where they didn't have to take his life. They made him take his own life. This is why it is so important to have a mind of your own. Do not let nobody get into your mind, because now you've allowed them to get in the driver's seat of your head, where you should be the one in the driver's seat of your head. This is why in the beginning, I always talked about recovery from religion. Jesus Christ is no longer the driver. No, fuck Jesus taking the wheel. I took the wheel. That's right, I said it. And if you don't like it, you can log off, unlike, unsubscribe if you don't understand why I took the wheel. I understand why you allow Jesus to take the wheel, because I've been there. But I'm asking you to understand why I took the wheel. And if you can't understand that, we are not the same. And I'm okay with that, but you might not be okay with that. And it's okay for you to unlike, unsubscribe, and go about your way. Nobody's forcing you to stay here. But as for me and my house, which is my vessel, I am the one behind the wheel. Nobody is behind this wheel. No Jesus, no Buddha, no Muhammad, no Allah, none of that. I am behind the wheel in my life. This is the wheel. Did you not know that? If you didn't, this is why you're here. This is why you came to me. Because I'm the one that's going to make you understand this is the wheel that you keep giving Jesus. You need to take this wheel back. This is your wheel. This is your wheel. You need to take this wheel back. And you need to know how this works. So, my deepest condolences go out to Lee Thompson Young and his family. Also, before I leave, I want to elaborate on this self-inflicted suicide, self-inflicted death. Mars rules Aries. Mars was in Cancer that day, which is right here in the 11th house, which is where he came from. See, this is Lee Thompson, his sun and his moon, right here in the sorority fraternity. This could have been somebody from his sorority fraternity that got into his head, but this could also be somebody from his, work life as well. Somebody who he was working with. And I believe it's somebody who he was working around. Because if you look in the 6th house of Lee Thompson's birth, you will see Virgo. That's who came first. The day Lee Thompson committed suicide, Virgo was at home, which is work, service, the co-worker. Remember, he's in the entertainment industry. So he was surrounded by a lot of co-workers. He had billions of co-workers. But this was somebody he was working with immediately in his immediate environment, his immediate team. The 11th house is the house of teams as well. Anything that involves a group of individuals that come together on one accord is an 11th house experience. So this was his work family, because Cancer, which is where Mars was the day he committed suicide, family, Cancer represents the home, family, and the mother. This was his work family. His work family. This was somebody from his work family team. Somebody he confided in, somebody he felt comfortable with, that got into his mind. Because Cancer is a water energy. Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. But when you're dealing with toxic water energy, you're dealing with toxic water spirits. Once those water spirits get in you and pollute your waters, they first make you comfortable. They reel you in. Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces are the best at it. But when you're dealing with a toxic Cancer energy, toxic Scorpio energy, and toxic Pisces energy, you're dealing with warlocks and witches that specialize in making you comfortable. Why? Because that part of them is scarred. That's second nature. They know how to make you feel like they really care, like they really give a fuck. Because that's who they really are. It's just that they have fallen from the right use, from the upright use of that energy. And they're scarred. So they reel you in by making you comfortable first before they scar you just as much as they're scarred. They will bring you in. Boy, that scarred Cancer is something else. That's a person that will make you feel like family, but they're scarred. That's a person you'll feel like, damn, I feel like you my own brother and own sister. You treat me better than my own family. That's that toxic Cancer energy. They will reel you in. And once they get you right there where they want you, they will pull that rug the way life had did them. They have the power to do you. And boy, once they get done with fucking you up, you gonna know you came in contact with a witch and a warlock. A ugly witch at that. A scarred witch. Because we all are witches and warlocks. You have good ones and you have bad ones. The bad ones are always scarred. This is why even in The Lion King, guess who the bad king was? Scar. Why? Because it was a subliminal teaching message behind even his name, let alone the kingdom he ruled over. Scar. All of them were scarred and they were not healed. When you are righteous in your power, you are a good witch, a good warlock. I am a good one because I am a healed one. We all have wounds. We all have scars. But once you start letting your scar control you, you become ugly. To the point where it's even at first sight. You ever see some people, at first sight, they are ugly. You can see the ugliness in their spirit. It shows on their face, their whole demeanor, the way they look, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. They're just so unaligned. They're very imbalanced. They look like monsters. They look like monsters. There's nothing divine about them. Their aura, their light is out. You can see how mad they are. They are upset because of their scars. Whether that scar be, I was abused when I was a kid. I was molested when I was a kid. I was adopted. My mother didn't want me. My father didn't want me. Nobody gives a fuck about me. Those are scars that we all go through. But what separates the good from the bad, the weak from the strong, the lions from the cowards, is the healing process. Lions heal from their wounds and they become kings. But an unhealed lion becomes a scar. We all have a lion in us. It's ruled by the sun. That's why the sun rules the energy of Leo. We all have Leo energy in us. We all have Leo energy. You don't have to be born in July and August to have Leo energy in you. Those are just the people who actually have their sun in Leo. But we all have either a planet in Leo or we have a house in Leo. Even if you don't have any planet in Leo, you still have Leo energy because you have a circle. And we all have a place in the circle of life. And wherever your Leo energy is at will represent where your lion is. And you want to make sure that lion is a healed one and not a scarred one. Because that will represent the source of your scar. So with that being said, rest in peace to Lee Thompson Young. And it is my desire for all of you out there to heal. Heal. You're not a bad person. You're just an unhealed person. Don't let your scars control you, because it will turn you into a monster. And for the people who don't want to be monsters, it turns you into a person that will hate yourself because of your scars, because you don't want to be a monster. And because you don't want to be a monster, you don't know how to deal with your scars because you're not healing from them. You're allowing your scars to control you. And that is what will lead you to want to take your own life. You say, you know what, I don't want to be here no more because I don't like the way life turned out for me. The reason why you don't like it is because you have a heart. You got to heal. It shows that you have a heart. For you to even say, I don't like this, shows that you have a conscience. Some people don't even give a fuck. They be born into a life. They say, you know, my mother didn't want me. I don't even know who my father is. I was abused. I was sexually molested. I was trafficked, human trafficked. I was on drugs at a very young age. I was an alcoholic, you know, and I was locked up. I grew up. I've been through fights and I've been shot at and all of that. The world hates me, but guess what? I don't give a fuck. That is a monster, because they don't even care how scarred they are. The fact that this brother, Lee Thompson Young, committed suicide shows that he cared. This is why, let this be a message to all of you monsters out there who feel like, you know, I hate this life I live. Hey, the fact that you hate, it shows that you have feelings, you have emotions, you have a heart. Let that be a wake-up call. There's a reason why you don't like yourself. Don't let that reason take you out. Use that reason. Alchemize that reason. Transform that reason, because it shows that you have an ounce of emotion. At least you have some type of emotion. Hate is an emotion. So even haters have a heart that can be healed. Y'all be blessed.